Watch how God is about to open a stream of income for you in 2026, not as a trick of fate, nor as a reward flung carelessly from heaven, but as the quiet unfolding of something He has been shaping long before you ever thought to ask. For many, money feels like a distant country whose borders are guarded by fear, lack, and unanswered prayers. Yet God has never treated provision as a stranger to His children. He treats it as a servant, useful but never sovereign, meaningful but never master. When you begin to see this, your understanding of income changes. It stops being merely numbers and becomes evidence of care, timing, and purpose. There is a common mistake we make when we speak of God opening doors. We imagine thunder, spectacle, and instant transformation. But more often, God works like the dawn rather than lightning. He increases light so gradually that you only realize the night has passed when you can suddenly see clearly. In 2026, many will wake to discover that what they called survival was actually preparation. The skills you thought were small, the connections you dismissed as ordinary, the delays you resented as cruelty, these were not random. They were stitches in a garment you were meant to wear when the season changed. God's provision has always been tied to obedience before comfort. Scripture never presents abundance as an indulgence, but as a responsibility. When God prepares to release a new stream of income, He first reshapes the soul that will carry it. He loosens your grip on fear. He tests your faithfulness in little things. He teaches you to steward peace before you steward profit. Many pray for increase, yet remain anxious with what they already have. God, in His mercy, often withholds what would harm us until our hearts can hold it without breaking. Consider how often God works through the ordinary. A conversation that seems casual, an idea that arrives while you are doing something mundane, a door that opens not because you forced it, but because you finally stopped resisting the direction He had been quietly pointing toward. Income does not always come as a miracle falling from the sky. Sometimes it comes as clarity. Sometimes it comes as courage to act on something you have postponed for years. Sometimes it comes as the humility to learn again, to start smaller than your pride would like, and to trust that God exalts what is faithful, not what is flashy. There is also this truth we avoid because it unsettles us. God is not interested in making you rich, if riches would make you small. He is interested in making you whole. And yet, when wholeness is established, provision often follows as naturally as fruit follows a healthy tree. In 2026, many will discover that God is less concerned with changing their bank balance than with changing their beliefs about themselves. You cannot receive what you secretly believe you do not deserve. Grace must be accepted before provision can be sustained. Think of how God feeds the birds. He does not drop worms into their nests while they sleep. He gives them instinct, opportunity, and the strength to rise each morning and seek what has already been provided. In the same way, God may not hand you income without effort, but He will give you eyes to see opportunity where you once saw limitation. He will sharpen discernment so you recognize what aligns with His will and what merely looks attractive. This is no small gift. Many have earned much and lost more because they lack the wisdom to hold it. You may have felt overlooked, as though others advance while you remain stationary, yet God's timing has never been governed by comparison. What looks like delay may be protection. What feels like stagnation may be root building. Trees that grow too quickly often collapse under their own weight. God grows His people deep before He grows them wide. When the stream of income begins to flow, it will not merely pass through your life, it will support it, strengthen it, and if you allow God to guide you, bless others through you. There is also the matter of trust, not the shallow kind that speaks boldly but panics quietly, but the deep trust that rests even when nothing seems to move. God often asks for trust before He provides evidence. This is not because He enjoys testing us, but because trust itself is transformative. A fearful heart cannot recognize blessing even when it arrives. In 2026, God may challenge you to step forward without full certainty, to act on faith that feels unreasonable to logic but deeply right to the spirit. You may find that God opens a stream of income through service rather than status, through solving problems rather than seeking applause, through consistency rather than charisma. The world celebrates sudden success. God honors sustained faithfulness. And faithfulness compounds. It grows quietly, invisibly at first, until one day it becomes undeniable. Do not despise small beginnings. Heaven never has. It is important to understand that provision is not only about receiving, but about alignment. When your work aligns with your values align with God's will, and your will aligns with obedience, provision flows with less resistance. Much of our struggle with income is not lack, but misalignment. We push against doors God never meant us to open, while ignoring paths He has already cleared. In prayer, many ask God to change their circumstances. Fewer ask Him to change their character. Yet character determines capacity. God may be preparing you to handle income with integrity, generosity, and restraint. These qualities do not appear overnight. They are formed in moments when no one is watching, when choices seem insignificant, when obedience feels unrewarded. But God sees, and God remembers. As 2026 approaches, you may sense a quiet stirring, a restlessness that is not anxiety but invitation. Pay attention to it. God often whispers before He speaks aloud. He nudges before He moves. If you listen, you may notice that He is already redirecting your thoughts, refining your goals, and separating what is merely urgent from what is truly important. Income gained without purpose quickly becomes burden. Income aligned with purpose becomes blessing. Do not imagine that God's provision will arrive without resistance. Growth often attracts opposition, both external and internal. Doubt will question your worthiness. Fear will exaggerate risk. Old habits will try to reclaim control. Yet none of these are signs you are on the wrong path. Often they are evidence that change is near. God does not remove every obstacle, He strengthens you to walk through them. Remember that God's generosity is not limited by economy, location, or background. He is not constrained by what you lack, He works with what you surrender. When Moses doubted, God asked what was already in his hand. When Jesus fed the multitude, He began with what seemed insufficient. God specializes in multiplying what is willingly offered. Your skills, your time, your creativity, your obedience. These are seeds. Seeds rarely look like forests when they are planted. You may have prayed for financial breakthrough for years and grown weary of hoping. Weariness does not disqualify you, it humanizes you. God is not offended by your exhaustion, He meets you there. Often, the greatest breakthroughs come not when faith feels strong, but when it feels stubborn. When you choose to trust, not because it feels good, but because you know who God is. In the coming season, watch for subtle shifts, a new confidence in decisions, a peace that replaces panic, a clarity that simplifies what once overwhelmed you. These are signs that provision is approaching, because God often prepares the mind and heart before He changes the circumstances. When the stream of income begins to flow, it may surprise you by how natural it feels, as though it had always been meant to be part of your life. Do not rush the process. Rivers carve landscapes not by force, but by persistence. God's provision often arrives steadily, sustainably, teaching you to depend on Him daily rather than once. This kind of income does more than pay bills. It builds testimony. It reminds you that God is attentive, involved, and faithful beyond what you imagined. As you move forward, guard your heart against greed, disguised as ambition. There is a difference between striving and stewardship. God invites you to work, but not to worry, to plan, but not to panic, to expect provision, but not to worship it. When income takes its rightful place, as tool not throne, it serves you well. Perhaps the most overlooked aspect of God's provision is gratitude. Gratitude does not create income, but it creates awareness. It trains your eyes to see God's hand in both increase and restraint. It keeps success from hardening the heart. Ingratitude blinds us to blessings already present and makes future ones feel insufficient. In 2026, as God opens new streams, you may look back and realize that the hardest seasons were not wasted. They taught you resilience, discernment, humility, and patience. These are not small gifts, they are foundations. Without them, income becomes unstable, fleeting, or destructive. With them, it becomes a channel of peace. So remain attentive, remain faithful, remain willing to be led rather than driven. God is not hurried, and He is not late. He knows exactly where you are, what you need, and what you are becoming. The stream He is preparing is not random. It is intentional, measured, and suited to the life He is calling you to live. And as you stand at the edge of what feels like uncertainty, you may begin to sense that it is not uncertainty at all, but the quiet beginning of something God has been patiently arranging, moment by moment, choice by choice, preparing you to step into a flow that will require not only your effort, but your trust, your obedience, and your willingness to let go of the old ways you once depended on, because what is coming will not fit inside the same patterns, the same fears, or the same limitations you have carried until now. And if you listen closely, you may already hear the gentle sound of water beginning to move just beneath the surface, inviting you to take the next step before you see the whole path, trusting that the one who called you forward has already gone ahead to prepare what you cannot yet imagine. And as your heart adjusts to this new posture of expectation, you may find yourself standing at a moment where faith is no longer an idea, but a decision that asks you to act even when clarity feels incomplete, to believe even when evidence seems delayed, and to walk forward not because everything is explained, but because you have learned, through every season of waiting, that God has never failed to be faithful, and He is not about to start now, even as the questions linger and the future remains partially veiled, calling you to move not with fear, but with a quiet confidence that grows stronger the more you choose to trust, step by step, breath by breath, as the path unfolds before you, and the stream continues to draw nearer, shaping not only your provision, but the very way you understand dependence, purpose, and the meaning of abundance in a life that is still being written. Because abundance, when understood rightly, is not a sudden arrival at ease, but a deepening awareness that you are carried, that even when the ground beneath you feels unfamiliar, it is not unstable. God has a way of teaching His children to walk on paths they never planned to travel, only to discover later that these paths were chosen with far more wisdom than their own. The mind often resists what the spirit already recognizes as necessary, and so there is tension, not because God is absent, but because growth is underway. You may notice that as this new season approaches, certain desires begin to fall quiet. What once seemed essential loses its grip. What once demanded your attention no longer commands it. This is not loss, it is refinement. God does not remove things to punish you, but to free your hands for what He intends to place there next. A person clinging tightly to what they know cannot easily receive what they need. Release is often the unspoken prerequisite of provision. There is also a shift that happens when God prepares to entrust you with more. Your definition of success begins to change. It becomes less about proving something to others and more about aligning with something eternal. You start to recognize the difference between being busy and being fruitful. You begin to understand that not every opportunity is a blessing and not every closed door is a setback. Discernment grows quietly, like wisdom earned through lived experience rather than borrowed optimism. God's streams of income are rarely isolated events. They are connected to calling, responsibility, and often to people you have not yet met. Provision flows outward as well as inward. It touches families, communities, and moments far beyond your immediate awareness. This is why God is careful with timing. What He releases into your life rarely stops with you. The weight of that responsibility is something He prepares you to carry long before the visible reward appears. You may find yourself revisiting old ideas with new eyes. Concepts that once seemed impractical now feel possible. Skills you undervalued begin to reveal their worth. This is not coincidence. God has a way of redeeming what you once overlooked. Nothing offered to Him sincerely is ever wasted. Even mistakes, when surrendered, become teachers. Even detours, when trusted, become direction. There is a quiet courage that emerges when you stop fearing lack. It does not shout. It does not boast. it simply acts. This courage allows you to say yes when hesitation once ruled, and no when compromise once tempted. It is the courage to trust that obedience is never truly costly, even when it feels uncomfortable at first. God does not ask you to step blindly, but He does ask you to step faithfully. As income begins to form in new ways, you may notice that your relationship with money itself changes. It becomes less emotional, less controlling. It no longer defines your peace or dictates your worth. This detachment is not indifference, it is freedom. Money loses its power to intimidate or impress, and in doing so becomes far more useful. God gives tools to those who will use them wisely, not worship them blindly. There will be moments when progress feels slower than expected, when growth seems incremental rather than explosive. Resist the temptation to measure God's work by human impatience. What appears slow to you may be precise to Him. Precision requires patience. God does not rush what must last. Streams that endure are carved carefully, not hurriedly. You may also encounter resistance from unexpected places, sometimes from others, sometimes from within. Old narratives will try to resurface, reminding you of who you used to be, what you once lacked, where you once led. These voices are not prophetic, they are familiar. Familiarity often disguises itself as truth, but God's truth often feels new, challenging, and quietly persistent. In this season, obedience may look surprisingly ordinary, showing up consistently, honoring commitments, doing excellent work even when no one applauds, speaking with integrity when shortcuts appear easier. These choices rarely feel dramatic, but they accumulate. God multiplies what is done faithfully, not what is done impulsively. Consistency is a form of trust expressed through action. You may find that God teaches you to listen more than you speak, to observe more than you react. This stillness is not inactivity, it is preparation. Streams are guided by banks. Without them, water spreads thin and loses force. God forms boundaries not to limit you but to direct you. Focus is not restriction, it is alignment. As clarity increases, fear often diminishes, not because circumstances suddenly become predictable, but because your confidence shifts from outcome to guidance. You begin to trust that even if plans change, God remains constant. This trust allows you to move forward without needing every detail resolved. Faith matures when it no longer demands certainty to proceed. There is a subtle joy that accompanies this kind of trust. It is not dependent on numbers or milestones. It arises from knowing you are walking in step with something greater than yourself. This joy steadies you. It guards you against despair when challenges arise and against arrogance when success comes. Joy becomes an anchor, not a reaction. God's provision also teaches you to value timing over speed, to recognize that arriving too early can be as harmful as arriving too late. You may look back and see moments when you wished things had moved faster, only to realize later that you were spared from responsibilities you were yet equipped to handle. Protection often masquerades as delay. As the stream grows nearer, generosity may begin to surface in unexpected ways, not necessarily in grand gestures, but in quiet willingness, sharing knowledge, offering encouragement, creating opportunities for others. Generosity is not measured by amount but by posture. A generous heart signals readiness for increase because it understands that provision is meant to flow, not stagnate. You may notice that gratitude becomes more natural, less forced. It arises not only for what is good, but for what is shaping you. Gratitude recalibrates perspective. It reminds you that God's work is not limited to visible success. He is just as present in formation as He is in fulfillment. In moments of uncertainty, return to what you know to be true rather than what you fear might happen. God's character does not change with circumstances. He has always been faithful, attentive, and purposeful. Doubt often speaks loudly, but truth speaks steadily. Learn to listen for the steady voice. As you continue forward, you may sense an increasing alignment between effort and peace. Work no longer feels like striving against resistance, but cooperating with direction. This does not mean difficulty disappears. but it becomes meaningful. Challenges are no longer random obstacles, but shaping tools. You begin to see effort as participation rather than burden. God's streams of income often require patience to recognize. They may begin small, almost unimpressive. Resist the urge to dismiss beginnings that do not match your expectations. Seeds rarely resemble harvests. Faith is the willingness to tend what does not yet look rewarding, trusting that growth is occurring beneath the surface. You may find yourself learning to wait without stagnating, to prepare without panicking. This balance is rare and precious. It reflects a heart. Hat trusts God enough to act responsibly without attempting to control outcomes. Control is often a disguise for fear. Trust allows God to lead without interference. As the year approaches, your prayers may subtly change. Less pleading, more listening. Less urgency, more expectancy. This shift is not resignation, it is maturity. You are learning to pray not just for provision, but for wisdom to recognize and steward it when it arrives. In this unfolding season, your identity may settle into something quieter and stronger, less defined by struggle, less reactive to comparison. You become more grounded, more secure in who you are and whose you are. This security is essential. Without it, income amplifies insecurity, rather than alleviating it. God may also prompt you to release certain mindsets about worth and reward. You are not earning His favor through productivity, nor losing it through rest. Provision flows from relationship, not performance. When this truth sinks deeply, it brings rest even in effort. There will be moments when you are tempted to look back, to question whether trusting God is worth the uncertainty. In those moments, remember how many times He has carried you through what once seemed impossible. Memory can be an anchor if you allow it to remind you of faithfulness rather than fear. As opportunities present themselves, evaluate them not only by potential gain but by alignment with peace. God's direction is often accompanied by a quiet assurance, even when challenges remain. Anxiety may accompany any path, but peace confirms the right one. You may discover that the stream God opens does more than provide financially. It restores dignity, renews purpose, and rebuilds confidence. Provision touches more than wallets, it touches identity. When God supplies, He does so holistically. In this season of anticipation, guard against impatience disguised as ambition. Growth that is rushed often fractures. Trust the pace God sets. He sees the whole picture, not just the next step. His delays are intentional, His timing exact. As you walk forward, allow yourself to be taught. Remain teachable. Pride resists instruction, humility receives it. God often guides through learning, through mentors, through correction. These are not signs of inadequacy, but of preparation. You may notice that your faith becomes less about dramatic declarations and more about quiet consistency. This faith is resilient. It withstands disappointment and success alike. It does not depend on emotional highs to remain steady. The stream God is opening is not merely about escaping lack, it is about entering stewardship. Stewardship requires awareness, discipline, and trust. It is the understanding that what you manage reflects what you value. As the path continues to unfold, you may sense that you are being invited into a deeper partnership with God, not just asking Him to bless your plans, but allowing Him to shape them. This partnership transforms work into worship, effort into offering, and as you continue moving forward, attentive yet unhurried, hopeful yet grounded, you may begin to realize that what once felt like waiting was actually becoming, that what once felt like uncertainty was actually invitation, and that even now, before everything is visible, before every answer is clear, something within you has already shifted, already strengthened, already aligned with a future that is no longer approached with fear, but with a quiet readiness, as though your heart recognizes the sound of that stream drawing nearer, not rushing, not overwhelming, but steadily approaching, shaping the ground around it, preparing space for what will soon begin to flow. Even as you continue walking, trusting, listening, and choosing to move forward one faithful step at a time, without needing the end in sight, because you have learned that the journey itself is part of the provision, and the shaping along the way is inseparable from the blessing that continues to unfold. And so, as you stand at the threshold of what feels like a new chapter, do not strain to see the entire future laid out before you. God has never required full sight, only faithful steps. The stream He is opening is not just ahead of you, it is already finding its way toward you, shaped by His wisdom, guided by His timing, and sustained by His promise. What He provides will meet you where you are becoming, not where you once were. Let your heart remain steady, your hands remain open, and your trust remain anchored in Him. For when God begins a work of provision, He does not abandon it midway. He carries it forward with purpose, patience, and care, until what once required faith becomes testimony, and what once felt distant becomes a living reminder that He was present all along, leading you faithfully into what He had prepared.